No other team fits a hard-fought, gritty, determined victory quite like Corinthians.
Facing Central, with Memphis Depay back, the victory and qualification for the Libertadores quarterfinals had a cruel edge in a lot of ways. And in the middle of all this madness, there was a moment when the decision made seemed to make no sense at all.
And that was what completely changed the course of the game. When Corinthians had this free kick to take right at the end of the game, with one player down, and Memphis Depay lined up the ball together with Rodrigo Garo, I'm sure that 90% of the Corinthians fans who were at the stadium, maybe even more, and many of those who were at home also thought, man,
there's going to be a set play coming from these two guys here.
Gustavo Henrique, who is excellent in the air, or Gabriel Paulista, who also has good timing in the air, right? So it was really tough. Everyone could already see that play coming. Corinthians, for a long time, waited for the chance to try to get Gustavo Henrique to finish a play with a header or with his foot. He scored a great goal against Cruzeiro. But here, Memphis Depay had a completely different plan from what everyone thought was the most logical. But before this free kick here from Memphis Depay, we have to go back to the beginning of the match to understand the difficulties and problems of Corinthians and how the team needed a hard-fought goal at the very end to secure qualification. This here is a very important and sensitive starting point for Corinthians in the match. The issue of playing out from the back. Why? Corinthians is a team that likes to build up from the defense, working the ball and exchanging passes. And what did Rosario Central do in most of Corinthians' build-ups? They pressed higher up the field. They moved up to shut down the first pass and not let Fernando Deniz's team build up comfortably, forcing Corinthians to look for an alternative. So, in this play here, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Rosario players are in the picture, right? There are 2 more back here in the center circle. What's going to happen here? Hugo Souza won't be able to play it short, right? The team even tries to find Carrillo here, Bidon. He can't play it short. So he's going to send a long ball to Pedro Raul. Since Pedro Raul is a tall, strong player, he could also be the target for this play, right? You can't play it short. I'll send it to my striker up front so he can try to hold the ball and let the team move up. And then establish themselves differently up front. The first part of the plan actually worked, man. Pedro Raul even managed to hold on to a ball or two. He was able to lay it off here and there to keep the play going. He has some trouble controlling it, but he manages to get the ball back to Breno Bidon. But notice that as Breno Bidon lays the ball off trying to make a play, a 1-2, or a play down the wing, Rosario was really alert to that move and was pressing really hard. Man, look, he passed the ball to Bidon here. The Rosario player, Alan Rodriguez, already closed in.
And this other midfielder here already cut off the possibility of a back pass, of passing it back to Breno Bidon. Pedro was already shadowing, so they couldn't play the ball back there. So, faced with such tight marking, with just a split second to make a decision, Bidon makes a forward pass to Caio Cesar.
But even so, Caio Cesar barely finds an advantage. Look how the fullback comes in and already cuts down his options a lot. This is a trademark of Deniz's style, right? Caio Cesar left the right side to come play here on the left side. He boxes in, applies pressure, and doesn't let the Corinthians player do anything. He has to pass the ball backward and ends up losing it. We've already seen a series of Corinthians build-ups where this happened. Here, look how the television director was already on top of things. Hugo Souza got ready to take the goal kick. The broadcast immediately focused on who? Pedro Raul. Because they knew that with Rosario Central's pressure, the ball was going to be sent to him. Yeah, Hugo Souza got ready, so the press step up and already said, let's go, send it forward. He sends the ball again to Pedro Raul. And here, once again, Pedro Raul manages to control it. He cushions the ball with his chest, already setting it up for Breno Bidon.
And as he passes to Breno Bidon, he already asked for the ball up front. Like, give it to me there, play me in behind. But for some reason I can't explain to you, Breno Bidon decided not to risk that pass. He sent the ball back to Carrillo, and Corinthians is going to build up. They're going to work the ball, exchange passes, because here there's not much chance to move forward.
The ball goes back there, and as Corinthians keeps passing, Rosario keeps pushing up, tightening up their marking again. So here, look, Gustavo Henrique has the ball. Ranieri is a nearby option. There's Gabriel Paulista, and Carrillo is dropping back. Here on the side, there's Bidon too. But there aren't many easy options to play forward. In this one, even Garo, look, he drops here on the right side and asks, look, give me the ball here, give me the ball here. He moves forward a little with the ball to see if he can break a defensive line. So Corinthians kept trying to adapt, to move around the field to find solutions and get out of this pressure from Rosario Central. Here the ball is going to Rodrigo Garo. And there was a very clear direction in these Corinthians build-ups when they played on the ground, right? When they weren't just sending it long to Pedro Raul.
They tried to build up on the right side, bringing Garo closer to that area to have Matiuzinho and Caio Cesar there, right? Caio Cesar was a very incisive player cutting inside, and Matiuzinho overlaps with a lot of quality, right?
Fernando Diniz's idea was also to have these players over there. We'll see here, look, on this side, Bidon is really wide, and down here is Mateuzinho, who's exactly the one who's going to receive this pass.
But here is another problem Corinthians had in this game: inaccuracy. Corinthians made a lot of passing mistakes during this build-up.
A lot, really, in attempt to move from defense to attack, to work the ball, to make passes. Corinthians made a lot of mistakes, right, in this play here. Look, the ball ended up going out of bounds. Another build-up from Corinthians. The ball here between the center backs, they're working it again. Rosario pushes up, moves forward on the field, boxes in the Corinthians players to keep the team from building up. You can see that here, the center backs always have support, right? Here, Gabriel Paulista has the ball. Carillo drops back to offer a passing lane. On the other side, Ranieri moves wide to provide an option for getting out. Mateuzinho is also close by here. But there's no passing lane to work the ball, to play it forward. Notice that here, Breno Bidão is also a player who comes inside to make himself available, but the player marking him closes down the space. Down here, Rodrigo Garau is also coming in, another option to try to build up play. And Corinthians keeps trying to commit a lot of players to this first phase of the build-up, precisely because that's Corinthians' strong point. Working the ball at the back, right? That's generally how Dennis's teams play. Working the ball at the back, beating that first line of pressure, and then managing to reach the attacking third with more space. That's pressure. It's always very basic in this build-up, starting from the defensive half. You take the pressure off the play, you beat the first line of pressure, and then you leave 4, 5, 6 players behind and have space to attack. So here, look, this build-up is very boxed in. Campas is marking Gabriel Paulista. Here, the midfielder closed in on Carillo, another one on Breno Bidon, another on Garro, and another on Gustavo Henrique. And the idea is actually to box in the ball side and often leave the opposite side open, because when the ball is switched, you have time to shift to the other side and mark up, which is what's going to happen. In this play, Hugo Souza switches the ball over to Ranieri, and the player who was marking Bidão on the right side here has time to shift over to that side to mark up. And then you might ask me, couldn't the right back put pressure up there? No, because here Matthias Bidou pushed up. So if the right back leaves the defensive line to press up high, he'll give Bidou space to receive a long pass, a ball in behind, and be able to make a play down the byline. And here again, it's the same thing. Look, the Rosario players come, they box in, and here, look, Bidou comes, and when he comes, the center back comes with him, the right back, right? When he comes, the right back comes with him, closes the space, so there's no chance to build up the play. And here again is that other problem, right? Corinthians' technical mistakes. Here again, Ranieri controls the ball, ends up losing it, and the referee even calls a foul. But all of this shows how hard it is for Corinthians to build up play, and building up play isn't easy. On the tactics board, you move one here, another there, and it works fine. But in real life, it's very complicated, right? It's not like in a fantasy game. It's not like in our fantasy game here at Futebol Maximo. You go there, set up your team, pick your players, and then just watch. Who scores more points? Who gets more passes right? Shots, goals, and so on. You watch what the player does and score points for that. Not understanding anything I'm saying, my friend? Then click the link down below in the description. You'll go to our fancy website, sign up, and there you'll find step-by-step videos to learn how to play, and join us in another chat here at Futebol Maximo. What really was no joke was this attempt by Corinthians to build up play. It was really tough, right? So much so that Corinthians at many moments had all their midfielders inside their own half. Here's another example. This time Carillo drops down on the left side, Ranieri drops a bit more inside. In the previous play you'll remember it was the other way around, right? Carillo dropped inside and Ranieri dropped down on the left side. And here again, Garro drops back a little to try to provide a passing option, to try to help the team build from defense to attack, but it was really hard for Corinthians to make this transition, to work the ball out. And when they managed to do it, like I said, that pass was directed to the right side, and the attempt was to get the ball to Caio Cesar. Why? Because Caio Cesar is the danger man, the one who breaks through the lines, the one who beats his marker. So, when Corinthians built up from the back, the idea was to direct the play to the right side, and try to put Caio Cesar in a situation, in a good position to build up the play. To go forward, to look for a diagonal run. But here again, the inaccuracy, right? He doesn't have much space, brings it back. And Corinthians again has to work the ball among the defenders. They have to build up with the center backs with patience. And again, the ball goes to the right side and Corinthians tries to direct a pass to Caio Cesar again. And what happens again? Another technical mistake. Because in practice, what did Almiron do? The coach of Rosario Central. He broke up the attacking trio from the first game and put this guy here, look, Alan Rodriguez, an extra midfielder in the game. Why? Because Corinthians' left side is very strong. Bidou supports a lot, he gets forward a lot. And Breno Bidon, starting from the left side, has a lot of freedom to move around. He can come to a more central area, get closer to Garro or go play on the other side.
So, he had Alan Rodriguez to be an extra midfielder. And on the right side, Coronel, the fullback, was in charge of marking Bidou. If Bidou pushed forward, the fullback would mark him. If Bidon moved a bit more inside, Alan Rodriguez would be there to help out with Ibarra, Navarro, and even Campas himself, who's a forward, but he took part a lot in the defensive game. So this attempt by Almiron to increase the number of midfielders ended up holding back Corinthians' game too much in this attempt to build up through the middle with short passes. Or to move forward on the field, trying to get in behind these players here and find space between the lines for Garo to connect with Caio Cesar. Crowding the midfield was also the key for Rosario Central to manage to nullify Corinthians' main options in the game. And because of that, this scenario here happened very few times. Breno Bidon being able to receive the ball with some freedom and pick out a player further forward. This was the only good play that Corinthians built in the entire first half of the game against Rosario. Bidon sees a ball on the right side again, just like I mentioned Caio Cesar on the left at the very beginning. This thing about Corinthians crowding players around the ball is a very striking characteristic of Denise's style of play. So a player leaves the left side and comes to play on the right side. Here in this play, Bidon receives a ball in this situation, and he has the freedom to think, to look at the game, to find an option. And he also has a teammate, obviously, to connect with, which I repeat, happened rarely in the game. So he finds Caio Cesar. And here finally, Caio Cesar has an advantage to drive inside on the diagonal. He manages to get past the defender, Avila, and then he shoots, but the goalkeeper makes the save. This was the only play that Corinthians managed to build according to their objectives in the game, which was to find these diagonal runs from Caio Cesar breaking through, moving forward, looking for plays to either finish or pass. The other play, on the right side, only worked once as well. I'll show you. In this play here, look, Carrillo moves from defense to attack. And notice that, like in very few moments during the game, Rodrigo Garo, here on the right side, managed to draw the fullback toward him. And that gave Bidu a rare moment of freedom to support on the left side. The marking was so well done throughout the entire first half that Corinthians couldn't have any moments of sustained possession in the attacking half to be able to find good solutions. So this was one of the few times the fullback slipped up. He moved a bit inside with Garo and left the left side open. Notice that as the play continues, he quickly realizes this. When the ball gets to Mateus Bidu, he says, damn, I've got the marking wrong here. I'll go back to my player. But by the time he goes back to try to close the space, it's already too late, my friend. Bidu has already managed to receive the ball with space, adjust his body to set up the cross. And here's a very important fact. Bidu, Mateuzinho, and Garo are the three players who create the most chances for Corinthians. The two fullbacks in this game with a lot of depth down the flanks, and the midfielder more central, a cerebral player with quality in playmaking. But here, this cross from Bidu won't find Pedro Raul, which is another issue in Corinthians' attacking play when it comes to chance creation and finishing. Here, Pedro Raul couldn't finish the play and had the ball. In this one of the very few moments in the game when Corinthians had a little more freedom, look. He even positions himself well for the ball he's about to receive from Rodrigo Garo, but the touch he gives the ball is really bad. He can't make a touch that gives him an advantage over the defender. To get ahead finishing with his left foot or something like that, and then the move ends up breaking down. So this inaccuracy from Corinthians, whether in the build-up, in the construction under pressure, or up front, in the moments when Pedro Raul managed to get the ball, he had one chance to head it and this other one to finish. They completely shut down Corinthians' game. And they left Fernando Dinize's team with no options in the game. The situation got much worse in the second half when Ranieri made that challenge on Copit and was rightly sent off. He was rightly sent off for that tackle. He got the ball, but his foot was way too high, right on the knee of the Rosario Central player. He definitely deserved to be sent off for that play. And then we go back to this play here with Memphis Depay at the moment of the decisive free kick in the game. Because after weeks of twists and turns back and forth, the contract not being renewed at the moment, the fight from the fans and from Memphis Depay himself to keep wearing the Corinthians jersey. It's time for him to get back on the field. He came on in the second half at a time when Corinthians were already a man down. I imagine it was mostly in an attempt to have a player with star quality, a player above average who could decide the game in a single play, just like he managed to do. And then there's the context of the game, right? When Corinthians win that free kick upfield, Memphis gets ready and goes for the kick along with Rodrigo Garo there. You can only think of one thing for this Corinthians attack. He's going to cross that ball for Gustavo Henrique to head it, and Corinthians will have a really good chance to score a goal with that. That was on everyone's mind. And that's why at the very beginning of the video, you remember I said that a decision that made no sense at all completely changed the story of the game. Because it didn't make sense for Memphis to take that free kick the way he did. What made sense here? A cross aimed at Gustavo Henrique's head.
But that's what different players are for. Players who think differently.
And of course, this was worked on, planned out, even if it was just discussed among the players.
Maybe at the moment of the free kick, like, hey, I'm going to take this low shot towards the goal.
Someone comes in and puts their foot on it, and it'll end up in the back of the net.
It was a deliberate shot in that sense towards the goal.
And Breno Bidon put his foot on it to score the dramatic, hard-fought, epic goal that qualified Corinthians in the Copa Libertadores.